In today's talk, I'm going to answer the question, how can mental health impact my child's academic performance? We're all parents here who would do anything to see our children succeed, become the best version of themselves, see out their potential. And we often will focus on the school they'll attend, subjects they take, extracurriculars they do. All the while, what can happen is their mental health, social skills, and emotional intelligence can be overlooked and be something that we put on more on the back burner. Before I started to become a counselor, when I envisioned helping children, teens, I saw myself helping someone get to the core of what's wrong, explore why they're overwhelmed, why there's negative behaviors, and really helping them find the best versions of themselves. And then when I started my career as an MFT, I was trained to use what's called the DSM. It's the diagnostic manual of all the different mental health disorders. And I was told that we need to diagnose children or teens to be able to work with them. Things like ODD, which is oppositional defiant disorder, AKA bad kid, or RAD, radical attachment disorder, which means a child can't be separated from their parents, all very extreme illnesses, and not every child fell into those categories. There was no category for a child coping with a divorce of their parents, or coping with a loss, or a transit, or a trauma that they may have gone through. So over time, what I saw in my practice as I started getting away from the DSM and working towards what 4 core categories that I found where there were similar patterns in children that kind of all rooted down to the same 4 patterns. And over time, I noticed that my DSM was collecting dust, and not to say that there was anything wrong with using that for the true disorders like bipolar schizophrenia, but working with children, there's so many more layers of what can be going on that we haven't addressed or we haven't diagnosed yet and are created diagnosis for in children. And so I'm going to be talking about those big 4 today. Those include emotional regulation, anxiety, performance-based identity, and one more that's really hiding in plain sight, a pattern that I think a lot of families can overlook because it looks really great on the outside. So I'm going to highlight that pattern, and you guys can kind of reflect to see, is this something that sounds familiar in our own family? So it can look like an elementary age student who's doing really great academically, subjects that are easy to them. They barely even have to study. Maybe they get their homework done before they even come home. And the subjects they're not as good at, maybe they study for a little bit, but they still bring home those A's. We're proud of them. They're confident. We praise their achievements to friends. They feel that they're proud to bring home their grades. But then over time, they move into middle school. Social pressure increases. The expectation to be more individualized happens. And the academics, they increase in their complexity. And children, if it gets harder for them, they start white knuckling it. They start, really working hard. Maybe they don't have all the study skills because maybe they didn't need them before, but now they're trying to learn them really quickly. And eventually what can happen is a crack or a breakdown where, no longer can they hide how much they're struggling, and they either shut down, shut in, push us away, or lash out, get angry, get upset, and get bitter and shut down from school. And as parents, when this crack happens, it can be a blindside to us. And we think, kind of, what happened to my child? Where did they go? They were this confident, great student. They have a lot of great resources to their disposal. They have so much potential. What happened? So this pattern that's hiding right on the surface can be perfectionism. So that's the 4th one. And it's tough because it does look like a calm, confident student on the outside, but on the inside, they can be really struggling in silence and not knowing how to ask for help because 1, they may be afraid to, or 2, they may not even know what's going on and why, so they don't know what to ask for or how to describe it. So in today's lecture, I'm going to unpack the role of emotional regulation, anxiety, performance-based identity, and perfectionism, how you can help your child before a crack happens, if the crack is happening now, or over time, having a more healthy relationship with their self and with their academics, so they can ultimately build that calm confidence, secure attachment with themselves, with school, and develop into what we all hope for, a great functioning adult. So let me introduce myself. I'm Erica Gregory. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and the owner of Johns Creek and Alpharetta Counseling. I've created a counseling practices that focuses on really the attention to detail. Each counselor is highly trained in the area that they see, and we really focus on the growth of our counselors so that we can offer that individualized experience for each of our clients. There's no sense of feeling like a number with us. I love seeing children and teens find their calm and confidence. I love working with couples, and some of my newer passions are helping new counselors into the field find their passion, find their niche that they're really meant to work in, and now doing what I'm doing here, no-cost mental health education through lectures like this to schools, as well as through our podcast and our YouTube channel. So I just love sharing mental health education in this like TikTok fake information world. I really want to put out the right information that's full of hope and encouragement so that we can have honest conversations about mental health. We're doing our part as a practice to try to help push against what insurance companies are doing to our field by really focusing on what the child needs or what the client needs, what the family needs, rather than working towards that diagnosis. And just a side note with insurance of just being a little cautious whenever you are seeing a counselor, psychiatrist, psychologist, and you are using your insurance, because to justify services, because insurance is a medical-based system, you have to have a medical diagnosis to justify services or to justify the cost. And so asking your counselor, what have you diagnosed my child with or me with for my services, or the psychiatrist, things like that. Because I know when I was 15, 16, I went to a counselor myself for, a bad breakup, teen stuff, worked through some of that. And I found out later that that counselor diagnosed me with bipolar, a very serious mental illness. And when it was time for me to get life insurance, that came to light because it was in my medical history. And I had to go through a lot of hoops to prove that I'm not bipolar so that I didn't have a high premium. And so it's just good to know that because it can impact career choice. For example, if your child's been diagnosed with ADHD, they probably can't get a pilot license. They may not be let into the military. And so it's just good to know these things and good to have, a sense of empowerment over your child's health and their future. Okay, so let's start with performance-based identity, because it's kind of the bedrock of the other three. Our identity is who we are, what we believe, what's important to us. For example, it could be I'm a good runner. Maybe that's something you're into, is running, or even like I'm an Olympic level runner. That running is a big part of my identity, a big part of my life. But what happens when you break your leg? Suddenly that identity changes. Suddenly who you are is different. I'm not someone who can run. So your identity can fracture. So a strong identity is based on more than just what we're good at or how the world sees us. It's what we believe in, what we care about, who loves us, who do we love. For example, if all my identity was poured into my performance tonight and how you guys perceived me, if I'm doing a good job organizing my information, things like that, then, if I messed up or put my foot in my mouth or did something wrong, then my whole career may be shattered. But since my identity is based in, me being a counselor, caring about my clients, really wanting to make that impact, wanting to share mental health information, even if I share one thing right, I'm still honoring who I am. And if I make a mistake, it doesn't shatter my identity. It maybe mean I need to take some classes or some courses on how to do public speaking, So it's all about development. So if there's room in our identity for I'm a person who's growing, then each time we make a mistake, we can lean into that and grow versus shut down and shatter a little bit as a person. So with our students, what this can look like is I'm good at school or I am smart. And so if they start to hit a topic or a curriculum that's really hard for them, or it's time to do a big project and they don't feel like they're doing a great job, then this can start to shatter their identity and start to create a sense of fear or a sense of hustle of like, I have to prove I'm good enough. I have to prove I can do this. I have to hide that this is hard. And so it starts to create kind of like a dichotomy of like, I act like this, but what's really going on is over here. And then that can make it that much harder for them to bring it to us as parents so we can help them, support them, encourage them, because they don't want it to be discovered that they're struggling like they are. So it's part of them to keep it hidden. And so, how we can help as parents in this identity-based insight is to start to expand what we praise. So it's not just always the grade, or it can also be praising their effort. I saw how hard you worked on that. That was really great. It really came out in a good way. Or it can be us admitting in different parts of our own identity. So like me identifying as I'm a mother, and so my child is a son to me, so it's expanding on that and helping them explore their identity in different facets. How we get something done, for example, how we study is logical, linear, and strategic. Why are we studying? Starts to get to more of an emotional reaction. It's an emotional question that digs in a little more. And so helping them explore, why does academics, why is that important to you? What are your long-term goals? If we have a picture of what am I working towards, a vision of where I'm going, for example, my goal is to be a doctor, or my goal is to help people, having some kind of sense of, I know I want to get into a good college, having that kind of sense, then that there's a purpose and a meaning behind what we're doing, so that when it gets hard, we can lean back on that why. So then this next step I want to get into is the emotional regulation, because a lot of, that performance-based identity can be a fear of letting anyone in, that I'm struggling like I am, or a fear of someone having disapproval of me. That can be a huge one, a fear of failure. And that is all on kind of how we regulate our emotion. Emotional regulation is our ability to manage any form of discomfort, pain, or emotional hardship. For example, kind of talking about how our body processes this. Imagine touching a hot stove. What do? We immediately pull back, like we have that biological instinct to move away from pain. Or here's another example, more of emotional pain. Our neighbor who we care about, their dad just passed away. And we're thinking we should probably give them a phone call. We should probably check in on them. But right before the phone call, we kind of feel that, oh, maybe it's not the right time. Maybe I don't want to bother them. They have a lot going on. Maybe I'll just make them a casserole. Maybe I'll make them some food and drop that off and leave. Because the idea of sitting with such a heavy, sad, nothing we can do to change it topic can be really overwhelming. And so we have that natural instinct to maybe avoid or shift. And so what emotional intelligence is, what a big factor of that is knowing when to lean in, push through, regulate when something's hard, come out on the other side stronger, come out on the other side more confident, or when is it time to say, no, that's not something to push through, set a boundary. So the differences between those two things. And so helping our children think through circumstances like that is a really great way we can help them with this. And then we can't really talk about regulation without talking about co-regulation. And so as most of you all know, that when a child's born, they're completely helpless. They need us to pick them up, clean them, to feed them. And when a crying baby, when we pick them up and we rock them, we're regulating them. They completely rely on us to regulate their emotion, to learn how. Now imagine a 5-year-old who gets a boo-boo on the playground, gets a scraped knee, and comes to us to kiss the boo-boo. It doesn't fix it. It doesn't make the hurt or the pain go away, yet it gives them that sense of comfort that we're here, it's going to be okay, and we've back. And so that is a way we co-regulate our children. At 5, they really need us. They regulate a little on their own, but they use us to regulate as well. And then now a 15-year-old, they're wanting independence. They're wanting to pull away from us. They're wanting to regulate more on their own. And it's developmentally appropriate for them to try, but they still need us a little. They still need us to maybe have their arm around them and help them think through a tough situation. And that's why adolescence can be so hard, is because we're figuring it out for the first time, how to regulate on our own and pull away from our parents. But in a lot of ways, we still need them. And so another piece of development is how the brain develops. So the limbic system, this core part of our brain, is what creates emotion. That grows first. What grows second is our prefrontal cortex up here, which is our regulator of our emotion. And so a child's emotion starts to grow before their ability to manage it grows. And so you might notice this in development when a child is a lot more emotional, but a little bit more, whiny at night. They break down a little easier for a few months, and then suddenly they kind of phase out and they're back to their normal selves. And that's when the brain is kind of caught up. What can happen sometimes is a child gets stuck in between those two, and that length of time gets really long, and a child feels out of control of their body. Nothing breaks confidence like, I can't stop when I start to feel, or I can't, slow myself down when I get angry, or I don't know how to impulsively stop the impulse to hit when I'm upset. And then they end up acting out and doing things the wrong way, and they get in trouble. And this can really break down identity of, I'm just a bad kid, why even try? And so I see that pattern sometimes happen there. But it all boils down to the ability to regulate and feel in control and feel a sense of, I know I can handle this. And so in counseling, what we do is we do play therapy. And so we help children touch and feel their emotion through expressive means, art, sand tray, acting out, playing out things. And when we start to notice their dysregulation, we start to help them playfully regulate. So they're intrinsically linking the, this touching the emotion, feeling overwhelmed, and this feels better, calming the body back down. Because imagine this, I think we've all had a 5-year-old in the back of the car having a breakdown, right? We all kind of parent code, if we all know that can happen, that has happened. So imagine that your child's breaking down, 5-year-old, if we were to lean back and go, I think you're feeling a big emotion. Let's take some time to breathe together. Do you think the child will respond with, yes, you're right, mom, I am having a big emotion. Let's breathe. No, they're probably going to throw something at us. They're probably going to scream louder. Talking about coping skills doesn't work when we're in the heat of it, in the thick of it, even as adults, when we're having a tough moment, talking about communication skills. We're not thinking about that right now. We're upset. And so what we're doing in therapy is we're helping the child intrinsically link. So I naturally start to cope and use my skills without even having to think about it. It's the same thing as when we do a big sigh. That's us taking a big breath naturally when we face something hard or something big just happened. And so it's helping a child intrinsically do that. And so when you notice your child dysregulating, if they're a little younger, helping them playfully regulate, ground. But as a teenager, what this can look like is, hey, I can tell something's up. I'm here when you're ready. Or, I remember how it felt when you were your age and I went through some things. So using that like it's normal, I went through it too. I'm here when you're ready. But one thing we have to accept with our children is when we want them to talk isn't always when they're ready to talk. And so we can open the door, invite them to walk through, but they'll walk through when they're ready. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to kind of the parents' role and unpack that a little more. And so another thing you can do at home is co-regulation. And so there's one of these tactics that another clinician came up with that's just really great. It's called connect to redirect. And so let's say your 12-year-old got really upset, had an emotional breakdown, and said some awful things. And so before we really jump into the bad behavior, we sit with them and explore, why were we so upset to begin with? What was going on? Help me understand. When they're ready to talk, and helping them kind of regulate, helping them understand what happened in their body to cause that behavior to happen. And then once they're feeling heard, understood, and regulated, then we can start talking about boundaries with the behaviors, because they still need behavior. If the bad behavior still needs to be spoken about, and so that wasn't okay, and what you can do instead is this, and here's your consequence. But they can't hear us. The prefrontal cortex is not online to take in what should I do different next time until we're calm, and even then, I can't make the choice to do the right thing, to make the good decision, unless I'm calm and regulated. So if I'm dysregulated, I'm not in a place to even make that good decision. And so it's helping our children with co-regulation to calm down and be more in control of their bodies. Also, what you can do is talk about your own emotion, age appropriate, depending on the age of your child or your teen. And so like tonight, preparing for tonight, when my children got home, I'm organizing my information, I'm practicing a little bit for tonight and I let my children know, mom's a little nervous. I have this presentation this afternoon, and in this evening, I need you guys to be quiet when I'm giving it. And here's why I'm getting ready and how I'm getting ready. So it's letting them know, we as adults, we feel these things too. It's hard for us too. And what I'm doing is I'm preparing, and that helps me to feel more confident. So they're seeing us having our strategies to manage our emotion and learn. So teaching by modeling is so, so powerful. The next one I'm going to hit on is anxiety. Anxiety is often confused with stress. What's the difference? Being anxious, being stressed. Stress is more based in a situational occurrence. So like tonight, again, that example of feeling a little more stressed today as I'm getting ready and as I'm in it. And then when I'm done tonight, having that, it's over, it's behind me. What am I going to do tomorrow? What do I need to prepare for next? The difference with anxiety is maybe having some negative thought patterns of, well, what if everyone thinks I, don't know what I'm talking about? What if I have really nothing good to say anyway? So maybe some negative thought patterns that make me question myself or question my worth or value. And then the anxiety afterwards may not even stop, because anxiety is chronic. Anxiety doesn't turn off. And it would be, well, what if they have a negative comment? What if they never invite me back to speak? And that would keep me up. And that might make it to where I have a stomach ache in the morning, and that chronic anxiety continues. So the difference there is when the balance of our hormones, we have cortisol. That is our stress hormone. That's what wakes us up in the morning. That's what gives us that motivation to get that thing done. That's hard to do. And then that's balanced with melatonin, which is our sleeping hormone. Melatonin starts to increase around this time at night, all through maybe 10 p.m., and helping us wind down, helping us sleep well. And then cortisol starts to be produced in our body in the morning. That wakes us up and that gets us going in the morning. If those two hormones are balanced in a cycle, then we feel productive, we get things done, and we sleep really well. But when they get out of balance, there's too much cortisol, then that's when our thought patterns can be negative. We have maybe high expectations of what we should and could do that aren't realistic. We have a hard time sleeping. We may be more critical to ourselves and others. It just starts to leach into everything. And so we all have our body tells with our anxiety. And so really knowing what our tell is. So like for me, for example, it's a tightness in my chest. I shallow breathe when I'm feeling anxious rather than just stress, when it's taken that step into something bigger. And so I might catch that before I even realize I'm being anxious with my thinking patterns or my mindset. I will catch that there's that tightness in my chest. I'm not breathing very deep. So what am I anxious about? What is this about? I'll lean into that and help shift myself into some coping skills that work for me. Everyone is unique with what their tell is. So it could be tension, it could be stomach ache, it could be thought patterns that get going. It could be tightness in the shoulders. It could be a back headache, the back of the neck headache, wherever your body holds your tension. And then what you do to help to kind of regulate that is unique to each person too. For me, it's nature, it's walking, it's a hot bath. That can help me slow things down and really kind of get refocused and start to have healthier mindsets. But for you, it may be totally different. So helping yourself know what your tell is and what calms you down, but then also helping your teen or your child figure that out too, of what is, you might be able to tell, just like you can tell when they have to potty, that potty dance, that they do. There's probably tells too that their anxiety is higher. So for one, helping identify it yourself as a parent, and then two, helping them see it for themselves, label it for what it is. This is called anxiety. And, what can help to kind of calm them down? What's their thing that really helps them go, So helping guide them in that. Is there something helpful that we can do as parents? Symptoms of chronic anxiety in a child may look like stomach pain, headaches, avoidance, irritability, isolation, chronic tension in their body, and difficulty sleeping, avoidance of things that they used to enjoy, a personality shift or change. And so you might be able to see this happening slowly over time. Some of this is typical adolescence. So, adolescents tend to isolate a little more, tend to be more to themselves, aloof, but you can tell there's something more to it. It's a means of trying to cope with something heavy that you can't see or you don't know what that is. So this last one I'm going to talk about is perfectionism. And perfectionism is kind of it holds on to all three. It has aspects in each of the first three that I explored. And so it functions in anxiety. It's fueled by anxiety. Perfection is like a voice or a mindset of, I need to look perfect, act perfect, be perfect. And therefore, if I do that, I can avoid any criticism, any blame, any embarrassment, any failure. And so it's a coping mechanism to avoid we can't regulate what's uncomfortable. So we avoid it through a perfectionistic mindset. The process of learning through mistakes, trying again, leaning into what's difficult becomes impossible when perfectionism is taking over. And where you see perfectionism popping up is something where you feel a little bit more insecure about, an area that feels harder or heavier. And so if you're a woman who feels a little insecure about your body weight, you may notice women either who look great or who don't look great. It may be something you just are focusing more on. And so those are kind of our tells of we're struggling with something, or our teen is is struggling in something. Perfectionism is rooted in fear and shame of being discovered that I'm not good enough, or being discovered that I'm not strong enough or smart enough. There's always a not enough kind of aspect to perfectionism. And ultimately, perfectionism is a liar of, if I pretend everything's perfect, then it'll protect me from ever getting hurt or ever having to feel something uncomfortable. When that's not true, it actually kind of keeps us in a pattern of staying stuck. Growth stops, development stops when we're focused on when we're kind of in a perfectionistic mindset. I need to do it just right. I need to always look good, and I should have already known that, or I should have done that perfectly, or I should have performed perfectly. Versus, I'm someone always growing, always learning. And when I don't know something, I lean in to figure it out. So that second mindset allows us to kind of lean into something and gives ourselves permission to not know or to not do it right the first time, versus that I should have already known this, or I should have already done this. Then there's that critical voice. So it makes doing something new each time that much harder. So you can really see where it keeps your child stuck in a pattern where it stunts their growth and stunts their ability to lean into a subject that may be harder, or lean into a skill that they maybe haven't learned. And there's a big difference between healthy striving, big goals, because having a healthy goal where I want to be the best version of myself, that's great. That's not what we're talking about here with perfectionism. Perfectionism is more of, what will they think if I get this wrong? What if I don't win the spelling bee? Instead of, what if I don't study really hard and do a good job at the spelling bee? It's a difference between having a goal mindset of, I want to be the best version of myself, meet my potential, versus I have to hit this mark or it's not enough. And I'm very fearful of how everyone will see me if I don't hit this mark, versus I'm here in my development, so I have a little more to go. So you can kind of feel the difference between the two mindsets, where healthy striving is great, where perfectionism is stunting. And so what can we do as parents? How can we support our children through these four? It can be hard, again, because they may not let us in. We may not know about, they may not share this with us because they either don't know what to share or how to share it, or B, they're so full of shame for having that struggle, they're having that difficulty, that the last thing in the world they want to do is let anyone in on it. And so how do we reach them? How do we break through that? One is seeing the yellow warning signs of something's different, something's off. This isn't kind of the normal for them. And it can be any of the things I was speaking about today, whether it's isolation, becoming more critical, becoming more irritable, avoiding talking about school if you ask, and, kind of more of a irritable response of like, nothing's going on, instead of like, yeah, I talked to Sally today, about school. And so it is great to help see those yellow warning signs before the crack happens, so that we can say, hey, I'm noticing this pattern. And I'm noticing how quiet you've been over the last few weeks. And, when I was your age, I struggled with like blah, blah, blah. And it really helped when I did this. And so I'm just wondering if, you're struggling with anything, and just know I'm here to talk. And again, giving them room. They may not walk through the door the first time we bring it up. They may not walk through the door and meet us there the third time we bring it up. It may take time for them to come to us when they're ready. But what our role as parents is continuing and consistently giving that message of, I'm here to listen, I'm here to care, I'm here to hear you, rather than I'm going to be critical, you're going to do this in my timing. Because a big question we have to ask ourselves a lot as parents, to kind of check in on ourselves, is this for me? Or is this for them? Am I worried about them and I need my need met to know exactly what's going on right now so that I can manage my own anxiety? Or is this for them to help them explore their own? Because a lot of times we may be serving our own need, putting pressure on them, shutting them down even more, making it even more unlikely for them to be honest about it, rather than just keeping the door open, consistently saying, I'm here when you're ready, and then they walk through it when they're ready, and then we can have that really great conversation that gets to the bottom of it. If you're in the middle of the crack, if it's happened, if they've had the breakdown, if they're struggling, if they don't know what to do, you don't know what to do, that's when we slow down. We pump the brakes and really focus in. It's okay to set boundaries with extracurriculars or AP courses or hard things added on. This is the time when we need to make room for, it's time for some personal reflection. It's time to be journaling. It's time to do some yoga. It's time to kind of lean in on what's going on and why. If you think about them writing that college essay of if I ever had a struggle and how I overcame it, would we want them to write the story of or the essay of I never hit anything, or everything was perfect, see nothing to see here, and I was great the whole time? Or would you rather them have that essay of there was a season where I really struggled, I hit some road bumps, I slowed down, focused on it, grew as a person, overcame, and here's where I am now because of it. That's inspiring. And so we want to be able to give our children permission to be able to do that, to be able to slow down enough to, this is a chance for me to grow. We want our children, our teens, to slow down and figure these things out now when they're in our homes, when we're there to help, not when they're 30 after their second child's born and they have a mortgage and a career and it all implodes on them. That's when cracking isn't an option, right? But it is right now, and where they can develop and grow, and it can help their identity and help their confidence of, one, I know my parents have my back, and two, I know I can overcome things that are hard. We don't know that until we've done it. Okay, so then there's just helping them establish a healthy relationship with themselves and with school, what those expectations are, what your mindset is about school, if it's a more of a perfectionistic mindset, or if it's more of a realistic, like this, I'm going to hit some things that are hard and I'm going to learn from it, and I'm going to fall on my face a few times, and then I'm going to get up, dust myself off, and try again. What is that mindset there? And so helping them understand what's healthy and unhealthy, helping them know their anxiety levels, what that looks like, how to regulate, creating coping skills or regulation skills into our everyday routines, helping them discover their own passions, giving them room to find those passions, because that also helps with the identity part of I'm passionate about because, and that can become part of kind of their purpose in going to school and trying and working really hard. And it can also become a piece that makes it to where it's not all performance based, right? So to ultimately answer that question, about your child's mental health and academics, your child's mental, emotional, and social health can become either a barrier to their academic success, or it can be the fuel underneath their academic success. They may need to work on one of those things or all four, a little bit of those things, but having that context of each of these helps you to kind of take some of their behaviors, some of the warning signs, and organize them so we know where to lean in. We know where to explore what's going on and why, so that you can help them. They can start to have some insight and they can start to grow. Ultimately, if they stand on a secure identity, on a foundation of purpose, and they have healthy expectations of growth and of failure, they know how to ask for help, they know the difference between stress and anxiety and how to cope with it, and they know what skills work best for them. As they hit road bumps in life, because it's going to happen, road bumps are going to happen, as stressors hit them, it's actually going to, as they overcome them, they're going to become more secure in themselves. They're going to gain more confidence in themselves. Every trial they face will lead to more growth and more security. And so if you're concerned, you're like, I'm not sure how to help them, I'm not sure, what they need right now, I'm not sure even how to start the conversation, that can be a great time to invite a counselor in to kind of help bridge that for you, to help assess what's going on, whether it's supporting you and supporting your child, or if it's supporting your child directly, because we do both. And we do family counseling where if it's a teen and you're struggling with your communication and has hit every barrier possible, bridging that conversation, bridging that connection, and bringing you both together.